Hello everyone, John here. Moving into my next kit, continuing on with the prehistoric skeleton theme that I've been doing over these last few builds. And this one is the Bandai 1/32nd scale imaginary skeleton Triceratops. I don't know what they mean by imaginary skeleton. It seems like if it's a skeleton, it's a skeleton. If it's not, it's not. It's imaginary. I don't know. But here we are. This is the next build. I have built the Tyrannosaurs in the same series. So I'm looking forward to doing this one here. So let's jump into this adventure and see what it's about. All right, so let's get to unboxing our Triceratops here. Now, Bandai likes to use these plastic bands instead of shrink wrap. I'm not sure why that is, if it's a cost-cutting measure or what, but sometimes you kind of have to work it to get it off. And that's just exactly what I'm doing here. Now, the Mosasaurus said 15 and up. This one, I don't see that here, but this is probably not a young kid's kit. You probably want to be, at least a teenager, I would think. Maybe 11 could build this. If the Tyrannosaurus Rex was any indicator. So, I do like the cover art. Looks like it's a museum, which it feels like it's your own little museum piece. At least the Tyrannosaurus did, so I like that. Here's one side. Box in, not particularly exciting. This does show the complete skeleton. And the other side shows some different views of the skeleton. And other box in, not particularly exciting. So let's get into it here. I am probably not going to take the parts out of the bags because I don't want to lose any parts, and I'm going to clean the parts soon anyway, so I'd like to keep them on the sprues. So let me dig through and get, there's an instruction book, or not an instruction book, an information book that the other kits came with this. The Mosasaurus and the Tyrannosaurus came with this kind of informational pamphlet that tells you about the Triceratops here. A little museum information. I'm assuming that this is intended to be educational for kids, which I support. And get some information on its teeth. Which, yes, it did have a beak, but it also had teeth. And let's see if I can... There we go. More information. That's some interesting coloration. It looks like it's got zebra fur, mostly white fur. That's kind of interesting. Anyway, and here's... Alright, so that's the information packet. And the instructions are here. So, let's see here. Now, here's the back and front covers. I think it talks a little bit about painting. I do like that they have a map of the sprues, which I think is a good idea. It helps you inventory your parts. And then there is a lot. The Tyrannosaurus had a lot of parts, and I'm guessing, let's see here. Yeah. And this one looks like it has a lot of parts here. There we go. There's one side. I'll kind of So there is a lot to this kit. Oh, this is interesting. I didn't see this before. So, like the prehistoric scenes kits, because this is kind of cool. These interlock. I did not know that before. I did not see that on the other kit. I don't know how the Mosasaurus fits into this, or if it even does. But it's interesting that you can do this. I'll have to figure out how I will display that. But, all right, so that's interesting. So those are our instructions, and nice color. Very nice. Let's look at our parts here. Again, I'm not going to bag these because I'm going to clean the parts, and I want to keep them on the sprues as much as possible, just so I don't lose any parts here. But here's our base. I do like bases. I wish it had a nameplate. I did not see a nameplate. There wasn't one on the Tyrannosaurus, and I did not see one on the Mosasaurus kit that I just opened. So I think that's unfortunate. I like having nameplates. It makes it like my own little personal museum experience. So here's our Triceratops kit. And the next step is going to be to clean the parts, because there may be a release agent that would mess with the paint job. Clean the parts, and then I will paint it and then prime it. Now on the Tyrannosaurus, I paint. I'm sorry, I'm going to assemble, prime, paint. On the Tyrannosaurus, I painted it first before doing assembly, and to a certain degree that worked, and I got a good paint job off of it. But I think with this one, I'm going to assemble first. So here we are. Let's get on to parts cleaning. Because a release agent is used in the injection molding process, you want to clean that off. Otherwise, it could get in the way of your paint job. I usually squirt the parts down with Windex, wipe them down, then squirt them down with water and wipe that down again. And that usually takes care of the release agent problem. So the Triceratops kit has a lot of parts, but fortunately, the instructions are very, very, very step by step. And if you take your time, they're fairly easy to follow. Now, there were a few gaps, especially around the frill on the back of it, that I needed to do, but there really was not much in the way of mold lines that I had to address. It was actually fairly clean. There are also some gaps to be filled on the legs, but nothing too major. I just used some Vallejo plastic putty, and that worked pretty good to fill those in, because you can put it on there and then it's water soluble, so you can take a wet paper towel and clean those up, so you don't have to come back and do a lot of sanding. But the assembly was actually pretty good. I started the paint job by using Mr. Hobby Oxide Red Surfacer 1000, and now I'm going to move to doing a base coat with Vallejo Model Color Pale Sand. So when I did this first coat, this base coat with the pale sand, I did it very, very thin, and it shows. The oxide red primer is very much showing through on the base and other places. So I want to do another base coat. But I want to build layers of color, and I want to do a variety of color because, if you look at things in nature, they're not always the same color. In fact, they're not very uniform at all. So I'm I'm going to build on that. So I'm going to do a mix of Vallejo pale brown and Vallejo cream white, mix those together. And again, I'm going to do a very, very thin, watered down base coat here, or secondary base coat. And we'll just see what it takes us. And sometimes, you build up layers like this, and eventually you get to where you want to be. Sometimes you take some wrong turns along the way, but eventually you find your way. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to continue building up layers of color here. And I think what I'm going to use next is Vallejo Model Color Chocolate Brown and Vallejo Model Color Hull Red. So let's see what that does. So I'm going to do some dry brushing here. And I think I'm going to use a combination of the Vallejo Model Color Cream White, the Vallejo Model Color Pale Sand, Vallejo Model Air Light Rust, and Vallejo Model Color Pale Brown. So mostly on, maybe a little bit of the brown, a little bit of the light rust, and a little bit of the pale and mostly pale sand, and mostly the pale white. So that's where we're going next. We'll see how that turns out. I think after that, I'll do a final dark wash over it, but we'll see where it goes. So the next thing I'm going to do is a dark wash to get into all those little crevices, and that might be all that I need left. So to do that, I'm using Vallejo Model Color Camouflage Black Brown, and I'm going to mix that with some Vallejo Mecha Weathering Light Rust. So let's see what that does. I'm pretty happy with how the washes went out. So the last thing that I think I'm going to do is the edge around the bases. And I'm going to come back to the Vallejo Model Color Chocolate Brown and the Vallejo Model Color Hull Red. The Bandai 1/32 scale Imaginary Skeleton Triceratops is done. And I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm pleased with how the paint job turned out, and overall pleased with the kit. This is a kit I don't recommend a lot of kits, but this one I would recommend. The parts go together really well. There weren't a lot of seam lines or mold lines I had to clear out. There was a little bit of puttying that I did. But overall, I'm very pleased with how this came out. So I've got some more skeleton kits that I'm going to do, but I'm very pleased with this one. So again, the 1/32 scale Imaginary Skeleton Triceratops from Bandai. Definitely worth building.